Our business partner roundtables have been very popular NJPAC events for years now, and we love to host them. And usually, as part of these gatherings, we offer breakfast, a chance to network, an opportunity to hear from leaders in New Jersey on issues that are top of mind for all of us. Today, sadly, I cannot offer you breakfast. You're going to have to make breakfast yourself. You're going to have to make do with the home-brewed cup of joe, but we do have a great opportunity this morning to hear about three remarkable firms, all based in Newark, and to talk to their leaders about how they stepped into the fight against this pandemic, going from a standing start to the distribution of thousands of masks, face shields, and bottles of sanitizer to the people on the front lines who need these supplies most. We hope to use both this session and more business partner roundtable events going forward to inform you about anti-pandemic efforts going on across the state and to spotlight creative, useful ways New Jersey's businesses and individuals are helping us at this unprecedented time. We want to thank our sponsors, PNC Bank, and our Business Partners Committee Chair, Joel Sherman of Atlantic Tomorrow's office, for making this event and the ones that'll follow on possible. If you'd like to ask a question to our panelists, you can do so at any time by typing it into the Q&A box. We'll ask the questions we receive from you at the end of our conversation, time permitting. You can find the Q&A box when you hover your cursor at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Just so you understand timing, we're going to talk to our panelists for about a half an hour. I'll ask them a bunch of questions, and then we'll take another 15 minutes or 20 minutes for questions from all of you. So let me introduce our panelists. They are the leaders of three Newark manufacturing firms that have quickly jumped into providing the material necessary for the fight against the pandemic. We are really proud that Newark is leading the way in this. They are Mitch Kahn, the president of Unionware. His firm is known for making hats, backpacks, binders, and portfolios in, as the name promises, a union shop, and for making all these things customizable. His clients have included several presidential campaigns, and today he's manufacturing face shields and hospital gowns for healthcare workers. I am the proud owner of various pieces of his collateral dating back several presidential campaigns. Mitch Gambert is the Director of Business Development for Mel Gambert Shirts of Newark, a company that's been in Newark and in his family for 80 years. They're known for their fine men's shirts, but today they're manufacturing thousands of face masks for healthcare workers and others. And I own way too many Gambert shirts. They're my favorite shirts. We also welcome Gil Spare, who is the owner of All Points West Distillery in Newark's Ironbound neighborhood. All Points West makes malt and grain post-still whiskey, as well as their Bone Black Vodka and Cat House Gin. But right now, the company is busily brewing hand sanitizer. Our restaurant, Nico at the Arts Center, is a proud client of Gil's. So Mitch, and Gil, thanks for joining us today. We're happy to have you guys, and thank you for taking time out of the important work that you're doing. So, thank you. So I'd like to ask each of you individually, I want each of you, if you would, to answer this question. How did you decide to make the switch from producing your traditional goods to making the PPE and the sanitizer healthcare workers need during this pandemic? What was the tipping point for you? And I'll ask Mitch Gambert to start.
Well, for us, the way it started, we had just started we moved our location, started at Factory Move on March 10th. And we were finishing up around March 18th, and all this COVID-19 was in the news, and it was starting to gain a lot of momentum here stateside. as we finished up our move on the 18th, we got a message from the mayor's office that they were shutting the city down for non-essential businesses. So we closed it down on the 19th, stayed home on the 20th. That was a Friday. Saturday morning, I got a call from a client of mine who I make shirts for, president of St. Peter's Hospital, Les Hirsch, and asked me what I thought about, could I make masks? And within about 2 minutes after that, I got a few more phone calls from people asking about the same thing. So fast forward to that Monday morning, I called my cutting room supervisor, my 2 sewing floor supervisors, and we said, let's give it a shot. We have fabric. We know how to sew, so we figured let's try it. We did about 40 masks that Monday. Tuesday, we got up to 400, and we're doing roughly 1,300 now. I mean, it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction, it just needed to be done. And also, because of the move and loss of revenue and some expenses we had to put out for the move, it was almost a lifeline to sort of keep some momentum going in the shop. So it was a little bit of self-serving, but also, you know, a need that was there for our community in general.
Absolutely. You were doing well, and you were doing good. You were doing both things at once. That's an excellent thing to do, right?
Thank you.
Gil.
Yes. So we were kind of riding high. We had just won Whiskey of the Year. And on the 7th of March, we were at the Whiskey Fest in New York City. We had the most crowded booth in the entire festival, inquiries coming left and right. And, you know, March 10th, we're told that or March 16th, we're told that the city's shutting down. Tasting room had to close, tour services had to close, and all of our on-premise accounts, you know, disappeared overnight. And I sat there for 2 days kind of in like shock and fear that this thing that I had spent 5 years building that was going so well, that was finally getting momentum, was being taken, you know, out from under me. And then 2 days later, on the 18th, the TTB issued a ruling out of nowhere saying that we now had the permission to turn into pharmaceutical companies. We're able to make hand sanitizer.
What's TTE? What does that mean?
After 9/11, alcohol, firearms, and tobacco was broken into. The cops went and formed Homeland Security, and the revenue agents formed TTB, and they regulate the alcohol industry.
Okay.
So they gave us this permission, and once we had it, it really became, instead of shock and fear, instead of kind of wanting to hide, it became an opportunity to really do our part. And so it really was, again, like Mitch was saying, it was a lifeline to keep the business alive, but it also was a way to be relevant during this pandemic. So it was, you know, I mean, as awful as this is, switching and doing something community focused like this really personally, you know, was a way to re-engage with what I was doing, and kind of my 2-day depression went away, and I've been running full steam ever since.
Are you operating 7 days a week?
No, we're operating 3 to 5 days a week, depending on the orders.
Got it. Okay. Mitch Kahn.
Yeah, so 2020 was set to be a banner year for us. We manufacture products for people who need products made in the United States. And this year we had the presidential campaign. We also had the Olympics, and the Olympic Committee was only going to license to US manufacturers. And we had the census. We had a big order from the Census Bureau for census taker hats. It was going to be a year like no other. And then right at the beginning of March, many of our presidential candidate clients dropped out. And I remember March 10th calling the Biden campaign saying, well, I guess you guys are going to a lot. No, we're shutting down our fulfillment facility for now because of coronavirus. At that point, nothing had really been locked down. And that's when I saw the writing on the wall. Also read the Olympics might be postponed around that time. And then all the closings started to happen. So I have 180 employees. Their union. I contacted the head of the union, the international head of the union. And I said, we're going to struggle for work, but I think we can make something that hospitals could want. Our union, Workers United, is affiliated with SEIU, which represents the hospital workers in New York. He immediately got me in touch with the Hospital Association of New York, and they came up with a few ideas of products we could manufacture. One of them was face shields, and I recognized the face shields as It was all components we already had. It was clear plastic that we use in the front of all the binders we make. It was a headband that we use in all the baseball hats we make. And it was foam that we use in backpacks and laptop bags. So on that day, we made a prototype and measured it into New York and have been making them ever since. About a week later, we started making hospital gowns for the same entity. And we have, the demand is enormous. Our big struggle now is just getting people to work.
So how quickly were you guys able to transform your businesses from your traditional product to these new products? Mitch Gambert.
I mean, it was really, for me, because we had just moved and we were still in sort of the unpacking mode. I have black bags full of shirts and shirt pieces that were sort of off to the side that weren't quite redistributed to all the sewing machines. So I had a wide open sewing floor. I had just bought a new cutting machine called a GTXL from company Gerber, and it can cut 40 ply at one time. So it was pretty, I gotta say the timing was rather convenient for it for me. It was like I said, we got right into it that Monday, Tuesday.
Mitch Kahn, how quick?
The bigger issue was dealing with the separation issue. We have a production line and we had to move people apart from one another. We had to change the formation of all of our production lines because we were making hats or bags and now we're making face shields and gowns, move a lot of machinery around. But we were able to start really in a couple of days because the key thing is we had the supply chain for the materials. That's really been one of the hardest hurdles for a lot of other manufacturers. If you don't already have established supply chain for raw materials, there are shortages of all raw materials that go into every product.
Right.
For us, for masks, it's elastic. It's really hard to find elastic. It's hard to find foam. But we had good relationship with suppliers. We knew people who might have inventory that other people wouldn't think about to hit those things. So getting the supplies in has been one of the things that has helped us do this quickly.
And Gil?
Sure. I mean, we had a lot of help. We have a Distillers Guild, and the Distillers Guild shared resources. So we made other distillers aware of who had bottles. We made other distillers aware of who had hydrogen peroxide, who had glycerin. And I even, took a trip over to Clifton. James Bednar, another distiller, gave me my first batch of glycerin and hydrogen peroxide so I could start production. And so that was really good that we were sharing resources to achieve what we've all been doing. There also was problems. I mean, I was going into plastic bottles and I use a vacuum filler, so I put the plastic bottle in, and that happened. So we had to make a. We literally were using beverage dispensers and flipping the little tabs to fill 2 bottles at a time. But generally it went smooth, and we were up and running that Monday, and our first batch was sold out by the 26th.
Wow. So each of you make a product or products that have a strong customer base. Sounds like your businesses are really solid businesses, 6 weeks ago, right? And all of a sudden you have a new product and you have a new customer base. How do you identify the customers? And when the demand is as overwhelming as it is, how do you decide where you're going to sell and ship the product? Mitch Kahn.
So for us, we really wanted to help the hospitals. That's what we were reading about. There were issues with hospitals because they were bound by regulatory guidelines that are just impossible to meet. Most of the things that we're making are supposed to be disposable, but disposability is a concept that requires really cheap labor, which we don't have in the United States. So we had to work with hospitals to change their guidelines, and every hospital ended up with a different guideline. That became really frustrating. So we kind of took a step back and started dealing with distributors who already had relationships with hospitals and spoke their language. Through those distributors, our products ended up in a lot of nursing homes, doctors' offices, and we've also been received a lot of orders from, say, the Newark Fire Department, Police Department, Sanitation Department, these departments in other cities, and then corporations. But we're starting with the frontline workers first. particularly anyone that the union has reached out to and asked us to help.
My sense is you'll never make enough product to satisfy the demand. Does that sound right?
Well, at some point, the virus is going to subside. Imports are going to start coming in from China, which are going to be less expensive and more attractive to these buyers. And at that point, there will probably be a leveling of supply and demand. But until then, it's a mad dash to supply as many people as quickly as we can.
To what extent is the pandemic impacting your bottom line, Gil?
Sure. I mean, I've lost 75% of my spirits revenue. I've replaced some of that with hand sanitizer, but this bottle of hand sanitizer has the same amount of alcohol as this bottle of vodka. And this FOB is about a third of what I'm charging for this. So I've had a lot of throughput, but it's at a very low margin. I've also been donating a lot. So bottom line, yeah, I'm hurting. I'm waiting for that. Just got approved for my PPP loan yesterday, though. So.
Oh, well done. Well done. Right in time. Right on time, right? Yeah. Mitch Gambert? I know how expensive your shirts are, so I can imagine your bottom has been impacted.
It's as I said at the beginning, with the expense of the move, we're down 400 probably between everything, loss of revenue, getting ready for the move, the actual week of the move, the new cutting table I had to buy, and the expenses of building out our new space. So that in and of itself has been a major kick in the knee. As far as this product, we're retailing masks for a whopping $3 to $4 versus shirts retailing for $200 to $500. It's we're sort of doing our best. I mean, we're doing about maybe a third of the business. I mean, I don't even think it's maybe 20%. We're down substantially. It's a scary, tenuous time, to be perfectly frank.
Right. Well, I at least you're smiling. I mean, nervously, but you're smiling.
Laugh or cry.
Yeah, right. And Mitch, quickly,
I have to say, we really have no idea. This all happened so fast.
Right.
We don't have the controls in place yet for these new products. We don't have costings in place. It was just kind of, let's make it and ask questions later. We know we lost basically the whole presidential campaign and the conventions, but we've potentially picked up a new product line. And one other thing that makes it worth it is on the other side of this, there's going to be way more attention paid to made in USA goods. I had a salesperson call me yesterday and he said, this is crazy. Normal people are buying our hats now. People aren't asking why it's so much more expensive than China. They just want hats and bags. So that's something that we have to look forward to.
Yeah. All right. So let me just interrupt this conversation for a second and remind our listeners and viewers, if you'd like to ask our panelists a question, you can do so at any time by typing it into the Q&A box. We'll ask the questions, probably we'll start asking in about 10 minutes or so. And you can find the Q&A box when you hover your cursor at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let's talk for a minute about the government. Were there government regulations that either helped or hindered you? Gil, I know there are a lot of regulations that affect the manufacture and sale of alcohol. How do these federal regulations affect what you're doing now?
Sure. I mean, the first thing that happened was Health and Human Services put a liability immunity on the type of products that we're making. So right now, we don't have to go through the type of quality controls that would be typical, as long as we're not fraudulently faking the regulations, as long as we're trying to do the work the way it's supposed to. So that's very good. We didn't have to ask permission from our insurance company. We didn't have to get riders that would permit us to do pharmaceuticals. Beyond that, there's been a lot of miscoordination. So we started production on the 20th. On the 26th, we were told that we had to change formula. Instead of using the World Health Organization formula, which was the original approval, we had to use the FDA formula, which added a bitterant. And this bitterant was a bottleneck because there's only one importer for this bitterant. It's made in Italy in the entire country. So a company called Market Actives in Portland had 300 distilleries calling them in the space of 12 hours asking to buy the bitterant. They normally go to large companies that produce what's called 40B alcohol for cosmetics industry in huge drums. And now they're asking for people to buy it a few grams at a time. And this company literally spent 48 hours working straight, repackaging everything to ship it out to the distilleries so they could make the hand sanitizer. So there was a bottleneck, but the bottleneck was overcome. There was a change in regulation, but it was quickly overcome. So yeah, there's been a lot of things. The state ABC gave us permission. The transportation agency that I normally don't deal with, what is it? The DOT gave us permission to transfer the stuff without having special hazard materials on the trucks. So, all the regulations got relaxed so this could happen, but it happened in a fairly discoordinated way. It seemed like that the agencies and the regulators were trying really hard to help, but there was nothing overriding, like no executive branch to actually give an executive order to facilitate their rule changes. So they,
it sounds like it's the Wild West, and then rules are being made up on the fly on a moment by moment basis. Mitch Kahn, have the feds or the state government been helpful or obstructive in the way that your business has changed?
I think that every rule at the beginning seemed obstructive, and then it seems quaint later on. Like the social distancing rule, nobody in our factory wants to be near each other. So it didn't matter that they had to be so far apart.
They did that naturally.
Yeah, the 50 people, the limiting it to 50 people, we would dream of getting 50 people into work right now. People are just afraid to leave their houses, particularly in North Newark, which is a hot spot and has a very, very strong Ecuadorian community, and all they hear about is just bodies piling up in the streets in Ecuador. So that kind of increases the fear there. But as far as the government regulations were too strong at the beginning, and the hospitals were unwilling to go beyond. And then when some hospitals started realizing that if they lowered their standards a little bit, they would actually get protective equipment, and if they didn't, they would get shut out. That's when hospitals started making up their own standards. And at that point, the CDC stepped in, and they actually created a standard for when the standards have to be dropped. And that helped out a lot because we didn't have to come up with a different standard for every hospital.
Mm-hmm. I will ask this question, Mitch Gambert, maybe you would answer first. I have been sheltered in place at home here at One Theater Square, which is opposite the Art Center, for what feels like centuries now. I'm not going anywhere unless I absolutely have to go somewhere. I feel these days like going out into the world is like playing Russian roulette, because so many people are out and asymptomatic. Each of you guys clearly are, at your places of work. You are working with, colleagues every day. How anxiety provoking is that for you, knowing that probably 25 to 50% of the people that you'll engage with are asymptomatic and carrying the virus now? Mitch?
Well, let me start that answer with this. My neighbor's wife is a nurse, and I've spoken with her a few times. So my anxiety is nothing compared to hers.
Sure.
But, on a personal level, I have, a wife and 3 small children at home who the minute I walk in the door, my 3-year-old daughter runs up to me every day and wants to hug me and kiss me. And I have to put my hand up and kind of stop her from coming at me and say, Daddy has to go change and get cleaned up. And that's hard on a personal level. It's also hard knowing that my wife's at home trying to homeschool my 10-year-old and 6-year-old and dealing with those challenges every day. The anxiety that I feel here, we keep a solid 6 to 8 feet, because we make masks, we all have masks. You know, I have Purell in my pocket 24/7. You know, it's hard not to get lazy and kind of forget sometimes you got to wash your hands before you take a bite of your sandwich or that type of thing. But it's a weird thing. Yesterday I came in late and I was like, oh, I want to get a cup of coffee. And I'm like, you know, where the heck am I stopping for coffee? It's a new thing. The one upside is, you know, there's absolutely no traffic. So I'm, you know, here to work and home in under 20 minutes every day. So
Right.
there's that upside, but
Yeah.
it's different. It's a different thing.
Gil?
Well, we have a very small workforce. We were 5, we went down to 3, and 3 people in this space. Social distancing isn't a problem, and you know we're trying to be safe. We make people pick up at the loading dock. We put it at the edge of the dock. They come and they take it. We're only accepting online payments. We're not interacting with the public like we used to. And that's a good thing for the time being. I think that we're trying our hardest to be safe, but we're also want to get the work done.
Sure, that's a balance, right? And Mitch?
Yeah, it's terrifying for everybody. We have our staff dressed in gowns and gloves and masks and shields, but all it takes is someone to take a glove off and check their iPhone, and then it all goes out the window. We have the conversation every day, or pretty much every day. Do we want to keep doing this? Do we want to take a break? Are we putting people at risk? And the consensus is let's keep doing this. We have a good thing going here. We're helping people. On the other side of this, things are going to be better than they were before, at least for the domestic manufacturers. Let's keep this going for as long as we can. But I don't want to make that decision myself.
Do you imagine in the new normal, whatever that is, that you'll continue to manufacture these products?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, I do. So we've been designing our products, particularly the face shields. At the beginning, I looked at what the face shield business looked like before the coronavirus. And I thought if we could engineer a product which was similar in cost to what was being imported from China, we can stay in this business forever. And that's what we worked toward. And we got to that point within about 2 weeks. The gowns, forget about it, because I believe the nation has a short memory. And while everyone's going to say we want these made in USA, countries addicted to disposability. And gowns used to be disposable. Right now they can't be, because no one in America can make a product that costs under $1 that can be thrown away. And we will probably return to that at some point.
Gil?
No, so we won't be allowed to do it after June 30th. And the imported hand sanitizer is $2.50 landed, which is half my cost of goods. So there's a very short life to this. We're fulfilling the need, both our need and the community's need, and then it's going to be done and back to better things like whiskey.
Well, I'm excited for that, and the fact that the margins are better is also good, right? So there's that. And Mitch?
I don't know. It's funny. I've had a few people reach out to me and say, hey, can we make, masks that it can, complement a shirt. So, we're doing, kind of fun patterns like this. And I travel a lot in season, and I don't know that I'll ever get on a plane again without a mask. I never did ever in my life, but it's we'll see. I'm certainly not averse to it. I just prefer to make shirts.
Well, look, I would depend on you if Gambert does make masks, that these masks cost at least $40. Otherwise, what's the point?
Prices are going up.
Yeah. Anyway, we have about a dozen questions that have been submitted. I'm gonna ask my colleague Aisha Irvis to ask the questions, and then you guys please respond accordingly. Aisha.
Good morning, John, and good morning, panelists. Good morning to our guests as well. Thank you for taking part. Okay, The first question comes from Joel Sherman, Chairman of our Business Partners Committee and also of Atlantic Tomorrow's office. How are you handling labor concerns about coming to work?
So, Mitch, why don't you take that first? Mitch Kahn.
So we have respected people's concerns about coming to work. And we kind of hit a crossroads because we definitely need more people. What we have started to do is figure out who has the capability to work from home with a home sewing machine. We are also purchasing more home sewing machines, which are different than industrial. They work on different types of power, and sending work home to people. We're not really sending, we're having them pick it up. We have a drop zone in our entrance where people can pick up work, drop it off, not interact with anybody, get paid electronically. And just today, we talked to the mayor's office, and they're sending out a message to the Newark community to find out how many people have sewing machines that want to work from home. There's an online application for that on the city's website, and we're going to start reaching out to new people. But at a certain point, it becomes a question. If people didn't want to come to work for 2 months and we have to hire new people, do we bring those people back? We haven't figured that out, but we have been working with our labor union to come up with answers, and they've been amenable. They understand what's going on, and they're being fair about it.
All right. Either of you guys want to take that, or should we move on to the next question?
Same answer.
Okay, great. All right, Aisha, next.
Next question comes from Ann Strauss-Weeder from the NJTPA. Have you ramped up your e-commerce channel as a result of COVID-19? If yes, what have been the challenges and opportunities? What do you think this will mean for the longer term?
I mean, I'd like to answer that. I think something happened that was a little bit unfair to my industry. The ABC gave us permission to do home delivery, and then they rescinded it only for the distilleries. So the breweries, the wineries, and the liquor stores, and even the restaurants can deliver alcohol. The distilleries cannot, and it's a weird accident that the statute that created our license prohibited the delivery, and because of that, they gave everybody temporary permission to deliver except for us. So our online business started. We got it up and running. We were making deliveries, and then it was pulled out from under us. So little bit of anger there because we lost quite a bit of that we could have recaptured through direct sales.
So that feels arbitrary. How do you understand that?
I mean, it wasn't arbitrary in that the statute that created our license was the only one that explicitly prohibited delivery, but it seems arbitrary that there wouldn't be an executive order that groups all the supplier licenses together and allows us to do the home delivery. So yeah, I don't explain it. I think it's ridiculous that a brewery can deliver and we can't.
Right. Either of the Mitches, you want to respond to that one?
I'll just say, sorry, go ahead, Mitch Gambert.
Right. We don't have an e-commerce, so because of the amount of emails I've been getting, it makes me wonder about, but it's a tricky line for me because of our retail partners around the country. So, no.
Right.
Yeah, and for us, it's just difficult to set up a new infrastructure for shipping product out, particularly when we're overwhelmed with gigantic orders from hospitals that we can't even fill. We can only take a portion of. Right. When those start to subside, we have plans to launch e-commerce sites for our products.
Next, Aisha.
Next question. This comes from Jack Peruta of Gensler. How much of your workforces have you been able to retain in the transformation of services?
Yeah, so we have right now we have 180 full-time employees. We have 30 that are coming to work, and then we have about, I think right now maybe 7 to 10 of our employees working from home, and everyone has been asked to come back, and that's where we're at.
Right.
For me, it's we typically have 80 employees. I have about 21 people, 14 of whom are sewing. There's very specific sewing machine operators that I can only bring back. I have one cutting supervisor. And then I have a couple people who are working from home who have, for personal reasons. So that has been a challenge though, because I have room for about 6 more people safely to operate machines, but they just can't get here or aren't willing.
Sure.
I mean, so I have a challenge now. So the PPP loan has come through, but it requires me to spend 75% of that loan on labor in the next 8 weeks. So in order to actually fulfill the terms of the loan, I need to ramp up production, now. And my concern is, how do I do that safely? And we're going to have to figure that out. And that's what I start working on as soon as this conference is over.
So what does a ramp up of production at the distillery mean for you? You said you have five employees now. What does a ramp up mean, and what does it mean to your volume?
Sure. So those 2 little cubes over there are fermenters, and we like to have them full all the time, and then refill them with whatever the next batch is going to be. And right now they are full, but they've been sitting empty for a week at a time. So we've basically gone from doing a batch a week to a batch every 2 weeks, and I want to bring that back in. Go from 3-day production on spirits back to 5 or 6. Again, it's a very small operation. We're 2,000 square feet here and have just a few people, but I'm going to have to spend a lot of money really quickly on labor. So we're going to be putting a lot of whiskey in barrels. The good thing about my business is that I get to hold inventory, and my inventory increases in value. So for me, doing production today is providing what I'm going to be selling, 2 years from now or even more. So just about building those storages of barrels.
Got it. Next, Aisha.
Here we go. From Howard Dorman of Mazars USA, who is also on our business partners committee. Going forward, will you be making investments in touchless employee screening, i.e. thermal screening, facial recognition, to ensure a safe work environment?
We're doing the thermometer screening now, and that's all that we have plans to do.
Mitch?
Same thing, just checking temperatures. They punch in kilos. They don't have to touch any computers or no. I don't know that we can do that. It doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Honestly.
Yep. Yep. Aisha, how about another one?
Sure. This one comes from Peter Hansen of Hansen Solutions. How long will it take the panelists to switch production back to their primary lines of business? What are they hearing from the state about phased reopenings?
Gil?
I've heard nothing about phased reopenings. We're going to start spirits production starting next week at the rate we were doing it before, just because we have to spend the money. It's use it or lose it right now, and it makes sense because this is actually a safe work environment due to the distancing. But we have no idea when our tasting room or our public program is going to start again, and we don't know what the character of that's going to be. We have a 300 square foot tasting room that we pack people into. That just doesn't work with a 6 foot separation. So we'll have to see what the rules are that allow us to reopen that part of our business, and it might not open for a long time.
Right. Maybe.
We'll be ready right away. I mean, as soon as they tell us it's okay, but as far as when that is, it's anybody's guess right now. People have to start selling, being comfortable going into stores, getting measured, being touched by their tailor, then, ordering shirts again before they really start putting orders in, at least in my perspective. So it's anybody's guess when it'll get going again.
We found that we will have a regular business going forward. About 40% of our business is with the military, doing uniform hats for the Coast Guard and backpacks for the Army. Those orders are still there. They understand we're not going to be making them anytime soon. But as soon as, and I don't think it's going to be the government regulations. I think the state will be reopened before our workers are ready to come back. And so it's going to be more about the steps that are taken to reduce the fear of people coming back to work, whether that's increased testing or antibody testing or a wider availability of sanitary products, whatever it takes. I mean, we can't wait to have everybody back. One other thing that we noticed is we are getting orders way ahead of when we usually get them. We're getting orders now for very smart distributors of ours who sell promotional products or retail products who maybe order 60 days in advance. They're saying, I want to order now for September and October, because they realize when there's going to be a greatly constricted supply chain when everything reopens, and people who place their orders early are going to be the ones who get the orders. Everyone else is going to be shut out, especially for event merchandise, which is a lot of what we do.
Mm-hmm. So the president announced yesterday that sort of three-phase reopening of, the economy from a federal perspective. And he sort of, said that it was up to each state, of course, to determine when each of them would reopen based on the status of the virus. Mitch, you just said something that interests me, and that is that whenever the governor reopens the economy, industries will lag in terms of returning. What do you think that lag will be? Do you have a sense?
I think that it has to do with I'm not getting the same information that my employees are getting. Everyone's getting their information from somewhere else. Somewhere else. Some people watch the governor's press conference. Some people watch the president's and believe it. Some people watch it and don't. Some people get it from Facebook. That's going to determine when people come back to work. Because there's no clear-cut answer to any of that, even if an executive order is issued by either the governor or the president.
Yeah, I think that's right. Either Mitch or Gil, you have a point of view on that?
But again, my fear, it's just like Mitch said, there's no clear-cut answer, and a lot of it's going to come down to personal choice. If somebody's not comfortable, they're going to have to make that decision whether or not they're going to risk not getting approved for unemployment benefits and those types of things. If they're that concerned with staying home, it's going to come down to what your gut tells you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are going to be willing to risk getting sick, but not willing to risk dying. I think that, until there's either better treatment options or a vaccine, this will continue to hamper everything.
Yeah, I think, from where I sit with our sector, which is all about public assembly, I believe that our business will be the last to restore, because even if I sell every other seed, even if I have your temperature taken before you enter the theater, all sorts of stuff like that, that is not going to alter the anxiety that individuals feel about gathering again. So we've created financial scenarios where we open in June, as we're announcing, where we open in September, where it is really totally uncharted waters for us. I look across the street at the Art Center, it's like the Queen Mary in dry dock. We don't know when we're going to set sail again. So these are, to your point about where we get our information, you're absolutely right. Everyone's getting their information from another source, and there is no monolithic singular source of information that we can all depend on. So these are challenging times. All right, Aisha, maybe two more. What's the next one?
Okay, so actually there are several.
I know, but we're only gonna, I think we only have time for a couple, so pick the best one.
Gotcha. All right. I was going to say there's several around one particular question, and that is, how can people order products from you? How can they gain access to your products? Another question from Galish is, how can we buy your products when this is over? So there seem to be a number of people who are interested in purchasing from you.
Okay.
Or how to access your.
That was our friend Dave Galish, I guess you're talking about. All right. So how can people get your stuff, if possible, if you're not a hospital? Right?
Unionware.com, on the top of the page, we have a banner which is changing regularly as we increase our e-commerce capability, and even we don't even have products on a website yet, but that banner will instruct you who to email or what link to go to order any of our preventive equipment product.
Yeah, on my website, if they do contact us, the email comes actually to me. So I'm doing the best I can to fulfill everything. It's a little overwhelming. I will say real quickly, sometimes I fear that I'm burning some bridges because of the amount of people I haven't been able to get back to. And it's really stressful because everybody's kind of jumped out to try to help and ask, and what can I do? What can I do? Got to the point where I just couldn't answer people anymore. And now I'm like, damn, like 6 months from now, someone's gonna be like, oh, you blew me off back when I needed you. And it's a little daunting. But anyway, they can go to my contact us page.
Got it.
So we've had a few retailers that have maintained their commitment to craft spirits. One of them is Cool Vines in downtown Newark. Another one is a Montevino in Morristown and in Montclair. And another one is Jersey Spirits in Jersey City, along with Cool Vines there as well. So those retailers have continued to order on a weekly basis. And hopefully everybody else starts reordering again soon. But that would be Total Wine Chain carries us. And, we have a lot of retailers that we work with. And I feel bad about leaving a lot out, but those are the ones that are ordering, right now.
Right. Well, one thing we know for sure is that there's been no decrease in drinking, over the past month. That should be
we really rely on the salespeople helping consumers find our product, and that's just not happening right now. Right now, it's the commodity stuff. They want people to come in, grab and go out, even if they're letting people come in. Some people are only doing a very limited catalog and curbside. So all of those retailers have really stopped their craft spirits program entirely for the time being.
Okay. Okay, Aisha, one more question and we'll let everybody go back to work.
Okay, one more question. How and what have you communicated downstream to your usual customers?
We've been sending out MailChimp email blasts to our client base, to our the resellers, retailers, telling them what we're doing. I've offered mask patterns. I've offered, if anybody wants some scrap fabrics to try to make masks in their shops. And more than anything, we're just telling them, just trying to give them positive messages, keep the hope, and stay positive about what the future is going to be, and that frankly we don't know anything other than that. That's the best we can do.
Yeah.
We have done absolutely nothing to communicate to our regular customers. The main reason is what Mitch Gambert said earlier about being overwhelmed. We're dealing with an entirely new channel in hospitals and medical distribution. Most of our existing customers resell promotional products or sell fashion, and we have thousands of them. And if hundreds of clients wanted to start to get involved in this business, we didn't have the capacity to handle it. And it's at the same time that there's way more demands than we can fill already. So other than on LinkedIn and on our Facebook page, we've really been quiet about it. I think during that shift where there starts to be less demand and more supply, we'll probably then start selling these products through our regular channels.
And Gil?
We've just been putting some random posts on Instagram. I mean, we really have stopped client outreach at this point. I don't know what to tell them. So I want to tell them when we're reopening. I want to tell them, information that I just don't have. So I'm just not been saying anything. Maybe it's not the best approach.
No. I mean, Mitch, you were making shirts, 6 weeks ago, and Mitch, you were making dress shirts, and you were making T-shirts and backpacks, and you were making whiskey and vodka, and now you're making products that save lives. It is, it's an amazing and incredibly useful thing to do during, a remarkably uncertain time. So, on behalf of everybody who tuned in today, we thank you. We thank you for your service. You guys are soldiers in the war. And you are making a huge difference. So, thank you for doing it. Keep doing it for as long as you can and need to, and know how grateful we all are to you for what you are doing. So many thanks. So So that's it, folks. We want to thank you for joining us. We will look to announce the next one of these, and that'll be about what's happening in our hospitals and what's happening with our drug manufacturers. We're going to be announcing that one shortly. I hope everybody continues to stay safe and stay well and stay strong. Take good care, everybody. Thank you.